It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people.
So this went well. Oh, that's Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio going at Anthony Fauci, who was called to testify, right? Subpoenaed to testify in front of committee chaired by Rand Paul. And Moreno asked you, turn around to the people behind you, all those doctors, all these people who got dismissed and told they couldn't speak and weren't allowed to say this and weren't allowed to do that. And, oh, they got attacked for this and they got ashamed and careers ruined. Would you apologize to them? Well, you got anything to say to them? And then, of course, we edited that up pretty well for you. Tony Katz today. Guys, a pleasure to be with you, man. Oh, man. This hearing, and we said this was possible, so we kind of called it, that Fauci took the fifth. Fauci took the fifth. Now, there is a question as to whether or not he can, because he'd already been pardoned. So I would argue that, yes, he's able to do this. I could, however, be wrong about whether or not there's a difference between the courtroom and what you're doing in front of a congressional hearing. This was the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And whether or not he is, in the words of Senator Rand Paul, engaging in obstruction of investigation. And for those in the chat room, as we live stream on YouTube and Rumble and Twitter and Facebook, it was 111 times, I believe, producer Landon kept count. He took off his shoes and everything to make that happen. Did I say hello? I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Look for us on YouTube and Rumble, Tony Katz, Twitter, Tony Katz, and of course, Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. This is how it started. Started with Senator Rand Paul just going right at it to Anthony Fauci. Of course, this is about COVID and the lies told and the release of the information from his private diary and everything. All this was submitted. He knew he was lying to us in America, we the people, repeatedly. Did it anyway. Origins of COVID, mask conversations, a litany of things while he was so impressed with himself all the times he could be on television. Lying about shutting down schools, he did it. He did all of it. He is the one who lied repeatedly. And this is how Senator Paul, this is how he started the conversation.
Tomorrow morning.
Theory that the virus arose naturally, while privately he was well aware of a mountain of evidence suggesting the virus originated in the lab. The American people deserve answers. The American people deserve to know why dangerous research was funded by NIAID in a totalitarian country in a lab that lacked acceptable safety standards. The decision to fund dangerous gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China, will likely go down in history as perhaps one of the worst public health decisions. Frankly, the American people deserve an apology. I hope today Dr. Fauci will come clean, admit it was a mistake to fund dangerous research in China, admit that the risk of this dangerous research exceeded any possible benefits, ask forgiveness, and pledge to help our government devise safeguards so a man-made epidemic never happens again. Instead of an apology, you have for years avoided responsibility. Regarding the lockdowns, you argue that you did not personally issue every lockdown order, close every school, or impose every mandate. But officials across the country invoked your authority to justify these decisions. and you presented your recommendations not as judgments open to debate, but as dictates of science itself. Your own words demonstrate that you understood the influence you exercised. On March 14th, 2020, you wrote that the task force recommendations were driven by me, yourself, Deb, and CDC. The next day, you wrote that you had convinced Mayor Bill de Blasio to close the New York City schools, so you were involved. That same night, Governor Gavin Newsom's chief of staff told you that the governor had decided to close California schools, bars, and restaurants after watching you on television. Presidents, governors, mayors, school boards, corporations, and Congress all bear responsibility for the decisions they made. The COVID lockdown, however, could never have been inflicted without you aiding and abetting the crime. Children lost years of education. Small businesses built over a lifetime disappeared. Patients delayed cancer screenings and other medical care. Families were separated from dying relatives. Workers were ordered to accept a medical procedure or lose their jobs. Worship assembly, employment, education, and travel were restricted in the name of science. While you did not impose every restriction, you used your public authority to justify them. While you concluded publicly that COVID occurred naturally, your private record tells a different story. In early 2020, your hand-picked virologist warned that the virus appeared to have been manipulated in the lab. In a conference call concerning the origin of the virus, all but two of the participants believed deliberate insertion was possible. Your concern was not merely theoretical. That same week, you led an urgent effort to determine whether your own agency had funded the research related to these experiments that were now under suspicion. Hours later, your assistant reported that the Wuhan experiments had indeed been reviewed and approved by the NIH. Those were not the actions of officials who believed that a research-related origin was an absurd conspiracy theory. They were the actions of officials urgently trying to determine whether their agency funding was connected to the research under discussion.
Now, he's 4 minutes in, 3 minutes in. He's not screaming. He's not yelling. He is just laying it out in totality. This is what you did. You lied. Now, I want that piece right there to be held in your head when people bring up Trump was the president. Why didn't Trump do this? Why didn't Trump do that? If you are looking to alleged experts who are not sharing with you the full story, how possibly could you have the complete information? I am one of the people who wholeheartedly agrees that one of the worst things we did in the country is we turned over power of the nation, control of the nation to unelected doctors, to these health professionals who did not have the whole of the country's interest in heart because they don't play that way. They think of one thing. Here's what the science tells us. But we didn't even get that. What we got were ideological answers, not medical answers, an unwillingness to engage all of the data. And then we, of course, know that the data we got wasn't complete. So if I have President Trump, President of the United States, the buck stops there and all that jazz, getting incomplete data, false data, lies, can I ask, why can't we say of the liar, look what you did? Why can't we do that? Why can't we say that? Shouldn't we say that? And the answer is, of course we should. In every single way, we should. Is Donald Trump the president? Yes. Why in the world would anybody support a man like Anthony Fauci, knowing clearly, without debate, that he lied? This is part one of the argument. Now, part two of the argument has to go to media, which has now been seen time and again not to be engaged in journalism. Don't ask for respect. You're not journalists. You never looked into Russia. You just believed Adam Schiff. You never looked into Joe Biden's mental decline. You just believed Corinne Jean-Pierre. You never looked into COVID. You never asked a question. You never talked to the other doctors. You just believed Anthony Fauci and used that as cover to be lazy, because it was never about journalism and it was always about narrative. America has every right to be angry, disgusted, to want someone's head, but this is the justice system. We don't do that here. You want to engage in just outright violence, you got to be a member of the Democratic Socialists, of Antifa, of the left. What Senator Rand Paul is laying out here is clear, is concise, is focused.
Connected to the pandemic. You could not hide that your agency had funded the Wuhan research or your long history of defending gain-of-function research. The only alternative left was to argue that COVID-19 did not originate in the Wuhan lab. You were not a detached observer. You had an institutional interest in the public believing that federally funded research had nothing to do with the pandemic. It was a conflict of interest from the very beginning. The authors of the proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2 privately had serious doubts about a natural origin. Within days, though, they flipped, and they all wrote in proximal origin that the virus was almost certainly not a laboratory construct. That paper was then used by the government and the media and you to discredit Americans who were asking the same questions that you and the authors were asking yourselves privately. You even cited proximal origin from the White House podium. You held it out as evidence that the virus could not have been engineered, but you didn't disclose your role in the discussions that preceded the writing of the paper. You did not disclose the author's original concerns. You did not reveal that you had been part of the paper, that you had read and offered editorial comments on the paper before it was published, before you began using it as evidence that it couldn't have originated in the lab. You did not disclose that you had immediately investigated yourself whether NIAID funding might be connected to the research. You did not tell the American people the full story. Duly released private messages indicate that the doubts with the authors and others didn't disappear after the publication. So while this was being waved at the White House to show that it couldn't come from the lab, the authors were still privately continuing to assign a meaningful probability to a laboratory origin, one thing in public and another in private. Some of the same scientists discussed avoiding email and carefully managing communications that might eventually be obtained under the Freedom of Information Act. The pattern is straightforward. Privately, there was alarm, then an immediate inquiry to see if NIAID's possible exposure to funding, then a rapid public declaration of certainty, continued private doubt, and then years of resistance to disclosure. The question is why? The only logical answer is that your primary concern was avoiding culpability. Your primary concern was hiding the fact that you had approved the funding for this dangerous research. Your support of gain-of-function research is extensive and long-standing. In 2011, your agency funded Ron Fauci's laboratory when it mutated the avian flu until it could spread through the air between mammals. This was the tipping point. This is when others became worried. You funded this. You advocated for this. The federal government's own biosecurity board, though, recommended withholding the details of these experiments because of the danger the research posed. People were concerned that publishing it was publishing a roadmap to creating bioweapons around the world. But you sided with the gain-of-function scientist Fauci and argued that the benefits of publishing the research far outweighed the risks.
Gain-of-function research is how you manipulate a virus to be more, well, you could argue more lethal. But what its purpose is, how does this virus work and how can we maneuver and manipulate it? And yes, the United States funded the Wuhan Virology Lab through a group called EcoHealth Alliance and a man by the name of Peter Daszak, D-A-S-Z-A-K. That happened. We have this data. We know this to be factual. This is worthy discussion. Never mind, should we be funding gain-of-function research as a whole? Why would anybody think it's okay to fund gain-of-function research in China? How could anyone think this okay? The wet market is about certain parts of China culture. And this came from a bat in a wet market. I don't know how else would I describe what a wet market is. Think of it as a market where people buy food. That there was no way this was person to person. This came from the animal kingdom. They knew early on that wasn't the case. We're talking about January through March of 2020. Yet they continued to push that lie. So we have another subject that's worthy of discussion here. And no matter how many people want to scream and yell that we shouldn't be talking about that this is old news, why does any of this matter? We're told that we've got a problem having faith in our institutions. Well, no crap. How could you have faith in an institution that lies? And that's what Anthony Fauci did. And that's what the NIH did. And that's what the CDC did, because it's all connected. And Anthony Fauci, upon hearing this, the data from his diaries and other papers clearly showing the lies, he then took to the microphone and said, I'm pleading the fifth, which is strange because he's already gotten a pardon, which, well, that pardon shouldn't exist. I've got a lot more to get to, including Major Mike Lyons, what's going on in Iran as they try to hit U.S. bases in Jordan. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz Today. I was answering a question for producer Landon. A lot of comments. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and do all the things. You are all talking about something that I wholeheartedly agree with. And so that comment right there from Jim talking about Patrick. About 2 months into COVID, maybe it was 3, I stopped reporting on numbers on my morning show and on the midday show. And I stopped reporting on numbers because when they were talking about COVID deaths, it was stuff like this. Somebody would get into a motorcycle accident and die, and then the death certificate would say COVID. What in the world? How is that possible? We had heard these stories. Well, we don't know if COVID led to something that caused the motorcycle accident. Certainly possible. It's also possible that they were getting financial compensation for COVID deaths. I argued then, and I would still argue today, that all the COVID numbers, all of them, are screwed. They're skewed. They're messed up. Screwed, skewed, and messed up. That when we see the number of people who died from COVID and COVID alone, that number is very low. And we will see that the mitigating factors, these other health issues, were already going to lead to their death, and COVID pushed them over. But we saw this manipulation of the system. I've got some trolls out there. Oh, if you didn't get the vaccine, that's too bad for you. It was an IQ test. Someone just wrote, it's adorable. This is not a story about the vaccine. This is a story about the lies. So try and manipulate all you want, supporters of Fauci. Messed up that you're actually still supporting this. Gross. Quick update on a story about a Wisconsin brewery. There was a guy who owns a brewery in Wisconsin. And this is the Minocqua Brewing Company. And the owner there, remember they used to spread these rumors, and they still will. Oh, we haven't seen Trump for 3 days. Oh, he's sick. Oh, he's dead. They did that one about 6 months ago. Maybe it was a little bit longer. Tony Katz, it's me, by the way. Tony Katz today. An absolute pleasure to be with you. And people would push these rumors that Trump was sick or Trump was dead. They haven't seen him for 3 days. And the guy who owns this brewery, Kirk Bangstad, he had put out a promotion that said free beer when Trump dies. Styling. Absolutely styling. Good work. You are that's the kind of thing we want in America. This was one of the things. This is the stuff, the people who have the death wish. It's horrifyingly gross. And now they've had their permit to operate in the state revoked by state officials. This guy is going to fight it. They took away his license. The Wisconsin Division of Alcohol Beverages, is dedicated to the fair and consistent enforcement of alcohol regulations in Wisconsin. The division is required to follow and implement state law, including ensuring permit holders and licensees follow all applicable laws and regulations. We can confirm that the Department of Revenue has issued a notice of a brewer's permit revocation for 2 Minocqua Brewing Company locations and notice of an alcohol beverage warehouse permit revocation for 1 location. The business has until August 4th to appeal and can operate during the appeal process. Should the business decide to appeal, the next step would be to appeal the Secretary to the Secretary of Department of Revenue, who will assign the appeal and onward and upward. I don't actually know if a statement as disgusting as the owner's leads to a revocation. It could have something to do with the fact that licensing has certain requirements, and this is a violation. There's going to be an appeal. It's going to be a story to watch. Major Mike Lyons scheduled to be with us next. I'm Tony Katz. I was trying to talk a little too fast there. Don't do that, Tony. My gosh, what's wrong with you? First time on radio? Come on now. Don't worry, I've got more on Fauci. I mean, I could just play it all, the pleading the fifth, but I do have Fauci's opening statement, because he made an opening statement and then pled the fifth. And that is something. Also, the market has just been rocked by everything. The Dow right now is down 855 points. They're waiting on a Fed decision. That's probably not going to come till later this afternoon. The NASDAQ is down 248. It's going to be rough stuff. It's going to be rough stuff. And Donald, I see on Twitter is posted this. I still call it Twitter. And a host of others I saw in the chat room. The most frustrating part is that we believe nothing's going to happen. No one's going to go to jail. No one is going to suffer the consequences of their actions. That's the part that drives us crazy. And Chris, this is a great point. How is offering free beer if Trump dies different from putting a bounty on his head? And the answer is, you're absolutely correct. It's not. That's the answer. Well done. Well done. I was engaging the free speech conversation of it. The guy can say what he wants and he can be as gross as he wants. I always tend to fall on that free speech side. It's like, if you own a business and you don't want to serve people who are white or black or Asian or Hispanic or Jews or Christians, I think you can. I don't believe in the public accommodation. It's your business. Run it any way you like. We have decided in the country that there is the public accommodation. So therefore, the people who won't serve you because of your politics or because of your religion, well, those people have to deal with the consequences. Do it my way. People can be free to do what they will. And we can decide not to shop there, not to go there. I wouldn't buy this guy's beer. That's the way I tend to move about these things. Now, Major Mike Lyons is there. He's in the green room. We have a fancy green room here. Basically, we just leave him there until we bring him into the show like this. Look at him. Major Mike Lyons, what are you doing, sir?
Tony, how are you? Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Now, we are live streaming, so try not to curse, sir.
I know.
The people would be very shocked.
Bucky's coffee mug.
Is that a Bucky's coffee mug?
It absolutely is.
Look at you. Did you see that John Oliver had created a takeoff of the Bucky's logo, and he's calling it Buck Off because he wants to take them on a battle. So if anybody wants to create for me a John Oliver logo where he looks like Bucky's and we call it Jerk Off,
that'd be good.
I will print those t-shirts. Drake, do you do t-shirts? And Ben Friedman does t-shirts over there, Prime Image Media. We'll make the t-shirts. We'll make the coffee mugs. And I need John Oliver looking like the Bucky's logo. And we're going to call it Jerk Off.
Yeah.
And we're going to sell those. And we'll see. We'll see if we get sued.
Yeah.
Plan.
AI, I'm sure could do that for you easily.
We know people. I trust the chat room. No, they're way more creative than me. We're going to bring you in just a minute, not a minute, about 30 seconds. What in the world is happening with Iran? What is it that they did? And what is our response? We'll get to that. Stay right there. Major Mike Lyons, our military analyst, the Bucky's mug. I got to get him a Tony Katz mug. I need an address, sir. I'll put that in the mail to you. So we're told by the president of the United States that Iran wants to make a deal. They always want to make a deal. You can never, ever count them out. They want to make a deal. As the president once said, it was in a post on Twitter years ago, Iran never won a war, never lost a negotiation. This is who they are. Tony Katz today. Great to be with you. For days, we have not engaged in a bombing raid on Iran. They're asking us not to. They're begging to make a deal. We're talking at the highest levels. It was Ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, saying things are going well. And then last night, it was CENTCOM that announced that the Iranian regime lobbed missiles at a U.S. base at 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces launched multiple ballistic missiles from Iran in an attempted surprise attack on U.S. forces based in the Middle East. All Iranian missiles were successfully intercepted. U.S. forces remain vigilant and at a high state of readiness. I don't know how anything is a surprise from the Iranians at this moment. Major Mike Lyons joins us right now, retired United States Army military analyst, West Point man. Let's start with the basics, sir. What is it that the Iranians attempted to do yesterday evening?
I think they sent a couple messages. They sent the first one was that they still have capability in order to fire a few missiles at, not at scale, but a few missiles at precise targets. I mean, getting likely intel from China or from Russia or somebody else. I think that they're getting help from somebody. And they did it during the funeral for Lindsey Graham, which again sends another message to the president. The United States did not decide to attack Iran when they were having their funeral for Khomeini. So, it just shows you the people that we're dealing with. And, we still, reading Institute Study of War this morning was interesting because they brought up the different factions that exist in Iran right now. And there are factions there that want to make a deal with the U.S. They don't want to get bombed into submission, and they're trying to do something. But the IRGC and some of the hardliners still have decentralized those military assets, and they still have capability that can reach out and strike Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and those Gulf states that are there, and potentially target U.S. assets in the region.
So as we look at what they did, this bombing, and you talk about capability, and I agree with you, that is something to note, that they still have the missiles. But in doing so, they let us know that they can. Mm-hmm. Is that, as a matter of strategy, one doesn't do something unless they have to do it. So there's a question of purpose here. Was the purpose here to show strength and force to others within the Iranian leadership? Or was this a lashing out? They're working on last gasp. If they can't get the other nations around them to push back against the United States, they have nothing. And this is their only way they know to do it.
Yeah, this is kind of a win by not losing, right? They're trying to run the clock out. They're trying to spike the price of oil again. It was up, unfortunately, the past few days. And they think if they can put this kind of military pressure on the president, and if one of those missiles got through, and we had casualties again, we're seeing reports of casualty rates that are higher than had been reported before. A FOIA report made that change recently. And so, again, Iran is just trying to survive. Again, there's other reports that show that it's working, that the blockade plus the sanctions plus the military strikes are working. It's just a matter of time. If I'd like to see us go back to 14, 15 straight days of continuous military strikes, taking out all we can, and then deciding we're going to talk then, not just taking a phone call in the middle of it saying, we want to make a deal. I don't think any deal happens until we decide that we're going to make a deal.
Talking to Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army military analyst. Axios, in their reporting that came out yesterday, or was it this morning, saying that the economic blockade is working very well, that there is talk that the factions, the terrorist factions, Hezbollah, Hamas, the IRGC itself, are not getting paid. Payments have been reduced, and that this is working to keep that up the pressure. And one could argue, if that's what's working, you don't actually need the bombings. So now I take it and turn it the other way. Does this show that we need the bombings? Or can the bombings be more strategic to where the IRGC is located as opposed to what we've been doing in the coastal areas?
I think that the military assets accelerate that process of getting them to the table. And there's just human nature is involved with that. So, yeah, I think we do need to continuously go after them. And if anything, if we use the military to do nothing more than tease out where some of those mobile launch units are, for example, right? I think that we know that they don't have many of them left, and we know that they have capability to fire and scoot, to kind of shoot, move, communicate, and that still is what those military targets would be. So I still believe that we don't declare any kind of ceasefire until we're confident that there's really virtually a minimal threat, almost no threat whatsoever to the regional countries that are there, and make sure that they can't do anything more.
We talk about these missiles. You mentioned the idea of a deal. I'm not somebody who believes a deal can be made. There is no one to make a deal with. Your point is that there are still factions that can make a deal and that want to make a deal. But we have these other factions that want to keep fighting. How does one get the IRGC under control, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, if in any way other than destroying them? And can that be done from the air?
Yeah, well, hadn't seen it historically. We've never done something like this just from the air, and we're not sending 200,000 ground troops to Tehran anytime soon. But we might not get total regime change, but we've talked about before this idea of regime compliance, what we have in Venezuela, for example. It is difficult to say. 47 years, they are well in the fabric and the dye and the communities of everything going on in Iran right now. But I think the Iranians are, there's other wildcard factors at play here. The Turks could factor in, the Kurds. We still haven't talked about them, their capability. If they decide to invade certain, portions of the South, let's say they decide to pick up a military mission in the southern part of Iran and help with the United States as a ground force. That would go a long way as well. So that threatens it. That's there. And then we also haven't talked about the Ukrainians. I think that no one, that we've opened up another front to the north. The fact that the Ukrainians can fire missiles at Russian assets 1,000 kilometers away in the Caspian Sea and hit Iranian ships, that is another really bad signal if you're the Iranians. So now you've got enemies on three sides. In the south with the United States, you have them due east in Israel, and now you have them to the north with Ukraine if they're going to start shooting at Iranian vessels in the Caspian Sea. So a lot of pressure still being put on them militarily.
The Ukraine conversation, the turn there is absolutely amazing. We've discussed this in depth with their ability to make drones. President Trump seeing a value in them. They've proven that Zelensky has proven that he can learn and that he can say, listen, I'm okay with being the tip of the spear here. All I'm asking is for some help so we can continue this fight against this aggressor. It's learning from Netanyahu. It's learning from the Israelis how they have approached the terrorists and the Islamists throughout the Middle East. But let's go over three things that you just discussed. Let's start with the idea of Ukraine hitting from the north. They want in this so they can further build their ties closer to the United States. That they're taking advantage of an opportunity, and I don't blame them. It's also helpful to us. Yeah. How much have the Russians been helping the Iranians throughout all this? And will it end? Can the Russians afford to have an end?
I think it's been ministerial support, as I understand, as I've researched and talked to folks and looked at it. What I mean by that is potentially intel, some of the satellite shots, maybe in that regard. But the bottom line is all the Russian equipment that the Iranians bought has been destroyed. Most of it's been destroyed. The air defense system's destroyed. You're seeing reports. Reuters is reporting this morning that the Chinese are bringing hundreds of manpads back into Iran. They're coming over land somehow. Now the Chinese are denying it, but this was a deal that was made a few months ago, and this was part of that op-ed I wrote that we can't let China in the game here. The next MOU has got to be restrictive about what the Iranians can do about rebuilding their military. And so again, whether the Russians providing ministerial support, that's about it. They got their hands full trying to defend the Navy. Again, think about the Caspian Sea. There's never been a NATO vehicle inside of the Caspian Sea, a landlocked sea that borders Iran, Kazakhstan, Russia, all those other countries there. Russia thought it was a complete safe haven. They could just sit there and lob missiles into Ukraine, use it as a way to protect Crimea and stuff. That's over. Who would have thought 5 years ago that the Ukrainians would have developed the capability to shoot missiles over 1,000 kilometers and hit naval assets of Russia in the Caspian Sea? Not me.
Talking to Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army military analyst, just to give a look here of the Caspian Sea. This is an area where you've got Ukraine right there. Caspian Sea is a far ways away, sir, but the Caspian Sea, Iran is to the south. That is a long way away to be able to make a hit, as you're discussing, but Ukraine is able to make that happen now.
Yeah, and hit. So looking at the Iranians sending Shahed drones and sending some of their technology into Russia, I'm sure Russia's still pressuring them to do that. Those ships are now vulnerable. And so in some ways, Zelensky comes to DC, meets with Bibi Netanyahu. You saw that they had a little bit of a glance at each other, and now, as far as I'm concerned, Ukraine has joined this fight. And
it wasn't an aggressive glance. It was a conversation. Yeah,
unspoken words about two combat leaders here. I look, Zelensky, for where it started, for where he is now, is going to go down in history as saving that country. And getting them. He just fired his defense minister, ready to fire. He's starting to try to put the people around him now that he really trusts to put a deal together. But and again, I would have never said this in the past, but I'll say it now. I'd be more than happy to put Ukraine into NATO, because they will be leading clearly the edge of the spear, not only just on the defense side of things, but just at the way they innovate in their technology alone. Look, they got licenses now to make Patriots, right? So when they get the rare earth minerals, they'll have Patriots up and running in 6 months in that country, and we won't have to sell them a single Patriot missile again.
I hate having to disagree with you publicly, but man, do I not want Ukraine in NATO at all. We're going to save that conversation for another day. I only have about a minute. So I do have a question about the Kurds and will they need to be armed, but I'm going to hold that for another day as well. I want to get into the missiles that were shot and the idea of surprise, was the United States really caught off guard by missiles heading their way towards Jordan, towards military bases and American assets, whether it's in Jordan or other parts of the Middle East?
No, the fact of the matter is they are intercepted. If none of them were intercepted, then we'd be caught off guard. The question is they are coming from higher altitudes, and it's more difficult to shoot out missiles that are coming at hypersonic speeds from different altitudes. And that's normally how these attacks go. They come in waves with drones and different things. So no, but if we were caught off guard, some of those missiles would have got through. It would have been a disaster. But again, they're staying on their toes, and they're making sure that the air defense platforms are working there.
Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army military analyst. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. We got a lot more show to get to. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz Today. Good to be with you. I see the chat room still has people trying to push Fauci love. It's just, you're all right. It is silly. Fauci worship is very, very weird. And we're going to get into that from Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey. I just noticed that behind Dr. Anthony Fauci, here, I'll put this one up. Check this out. I don't know. Anyone else just notice that? Right. So there's Fauci, and look to his, well, you're looking at it from the right. That's Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham is in the crowd. I'm surprised Janice Dean isn't in the crowd, because she was one of the people saying, look what you did to my parents. Look what you did to my husband's parents. And she was on fire with this. She has recently left Fox News for some of her own health issues. She's always been lovely to me, and to the extent she would even remember my name. I really do wish her well. Absolutely lovely. But she does weather, and for her to take such a strong a position was, I always wondered if that was weird for the people at Fox. Like, she's not somebody who's supposed to play in this, and yet she did. But she did it all data-based, personals, and it was really well done by her. And so I'm surprised she wasn't there. At least I don't see her in the imagery, but there's Laura Ingraham. I'm just a little surprised to see her. This is the La Aroma de Cuba. This is the El Jefe, which is a pretty big stick, but it's a Connecticut. It was the first cigar of the day. And weather was so perfect here in the Indianapolis area. Finished the morning show, and I said, yeah, I'm going to go enjoy this. I don't often get to do a morning cigar, but had the chance. But this cigar, the El Jefe is 8 inches, 7.5 inches. It is. No, it's not. They say 7-inch. It is not a 7-inch cigar. It's definitely longer, but it's a 7x58. It's a pretty big ring gauge. Not normally where I go, but for a Connecticut and for the price point, solid. I think I'm under $10 on this stick. So for a 7-inch 58, solid value, and I think it's a very, very nice Connecticut. Usually a Connecticut is the first cigar of the morning. Jeffrey, I see you there regarding that. Connecticut's have gotten so good lately over the last, I'm going to say 5-6 years. So much better. People playing with them so much more. People think of Connecticut as a mild cigar. And really what they mean is simple. And they're just not anymore. Really, you can do a Connecticut any time of day. Any time of day. And I'm thrilled by it because I enjoy Connecticut's quite a bit. So this has been very, very nice.
It's not an easy job, but it is because there is so much at stake in our country. But these public servants do it because they are in the arena. I just want to end by just reading a portion of this because I think it's important as we're thinking about how to be able to treat public servants through this country, to think through this. And in the words of Teddy Roosevelt saying, it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strive valiantly, who errs but comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumphs of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly.
What about the man in the arena who lies? That's Senator Andy Kim, Democrat from New Jersey, praising Anthony Fauci. What about the man who lies? Anthony Fauci is the man in the arena. He's got the blood and sweat. It's other people's blood. That's the argument. Fauci worship is weird. All political worship is weird. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. What about all the other doctors? Esteemed and lauded and with plenty of credentials who said, I don't see it that way. Look at this data and look at that data and look at the other data, and how people like yourself, Senator, dismissed them. They weren't allowed a seat at the table. They weren't allowed into the arena. That's the story. We are not praising a man who did everything he could and got it wrong. That's not the argument here. Or we're not discrediting a man who did everything he could and got it wrong. We're talking about a man who did not do everything he could because he did not relay the totality of the story. That is not someone worthy of our praise. We're not talking about somebody who, once they got the data, said, I was wrong, we have new data, and here's how we should proceed. He never said he was wrong. He never admitted to the new data. He said he was doing one thing while he was doing another thing. No rational person praises that man. No rational person wants their sons to grow up to be that kind of man. The argument you make, Senator Kim, falls flat. It is non-existent. It is another of a great number of gaslightings that, based on political party, people want to push on America. Can we stop? Damage was done. Let us assess the damage, who caused the damage, and ensure that it can't happen again. Why isn't that our focus? And the answer is because it's more important to be political. This was the same disgusting stuff that rocked us during COVID. We're taking this virus and we're making it political. And now we have the facts about Fauci and the so-called experts, and they're still making it political. It's obscene. I'm Tony Katz. Will Trump admit that he handed control of the country over to Fauci? I don't know. But we understand that this is also a part of the issue. Don't think that that's something that's some kind of hit. I was just talking about this. Maybe you missed it, Mike. Thank you for being here. I live in Indiana. It was Governor Eric Holcomb handed over the whole state to Dr. Her name is Christina Box. We saw this in New York. We saw this repeatedly. And it is one of the things we all have to learn we don't do. We elected people, and the Constitution doesn't disappear because of a virus. My rights don't go away because of a virus. But maybe we could have ensured those rights if we weren't lying about what the virus did. If you don't get vaccinated, you're going to kill other people. It was never true. Ever. And we knew it not to be true, and they still said it, and they kept pushing it. You have to wear a mask. Masks had no efficacy. Those masks that people were making out of old t-shirts were not effective for a virus that is aerosolized. A mask's efficiency, its efficacy was 0.3%. That was a study from the University of Waterloo. I've committed that one to memory. Because once you read it, you're like, oh, damn, why would anybody do this? They said, Fauci said he never advocated for the shutting down of schools. He never shut down schools, and we know that he did. We can't talk about the lies, can't hold the liars accountable, can't hold the politicos accountable for giving themselves up to the doctors. We got to do it all. You don't get to cherry pick the damn thing. Wait till you hear Fauci's opening. And then, of course, some of the questions that came. Josh Hawley, as Fauci is pleading the fifth, was it 111 times there, Landon? That's the number, 111. Our producer Landon, did the counting. I'm telling you. He goes after Rand Paul, Senator Paul. He then pleads the fifth, and everybody is taking their turn. Fauci won't answer. There is this question of whether or not the pardon protects him from things like this. I don't have a good answer for that yet. I'm going to need to read from some people who know the law better than I to figure out what the argument is here. But in the court of public perception, this dude's guilty. We are in radio break right now, so we're going to take the break right here. I really appreciate y'all being here. Don't forget to hit like. Don't forget to subscribe. Greatly appreciate that. We'll take a break. Hang loose. Smoke them if you got them, which is always a good thing to do. Keep it right here. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Anthony Fauci testifying by not saying a single word today. Brought in front of the Senate committee and decides, I'm going to plead the fifth, but not before taking his digs on Senator Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul is obsessed. Senator Rand Paul has a vendetta. Senator Rand Paul is right. And he's been doing absolutely incredible work. If you're asking why am I always lighting the cigar, well, I'm talking. I've got the show to do, and so therefore the cigar goes out. So I'm smoking kind of improperly. It's not easy to do a show and smoke a cigar. So that's why it goes out. Glad that you are here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will get back to it. Coming up in about 7 seconds. So Senator Rand Paul calls Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, the esteemed. It's funny when you say it out loud. Anthony Fauci was the guy we were supposed to have faith in. We were supposed to believe, representing the institutions in the conversations about COVID and how we survive. And Anthony Fauci lied, and Anthony Fauci lied a lot. Tony Katz Today, an absolute pleasure to be here and to be with you. Live streaming on YouTube and Rumble. Check it out, Tony Katz on the Twitter, also known as X, Tony Katz, Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. Get in there, like, subscribe, do all the good things. Anthony Fauci took the fifth. He did so 111 times this morning in this hearing. No matter what the question, I plead the fifth. And some of the questions were pretty innocuous. Some of the questions were pretty normal. Actually, they weren't even normal. They were super weird, but it was trying to set the point that he won't answer anything. This was Senator Josh Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So this is going well. So you understand he wasn't going to answer anything. And if you're asking, why wouldn't he answer those questions? Because it would open himself up. To answer one question is to answer all questions. Right? That's the story. That if he answered any of the questions, he'd be a guy who would be answering questions. And therefore, he couldn't do that. Now, we can ask ourselves why in the world he would actually take the fifth. We have the data, we have the story, we have his documentation. We know what he did, and he had gotten a pardon. He's still taking the fifth. But before he does, he gives an opening statement. Listen.
Member Peters, members of the committee, I served at the NIH for over 54 years, 38 of those as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Over that period, I proved that I believe in and respect the value of legitimate congressional oversight. In fact, I testified before and or briefed Senate and House Senate and House committees well over 200 times over those 38 years. During and after the COVID pandemic, I have appeared multiple times for hearings in the Senate and the House, usually under oath, and sat for several days-long transcribed sworn interviews answering questions about the very issues that are now the subject of this hearing. However, given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so, because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
So I'm not going to answer any questions, but before I do, let me see how much I can impugn Senator Rand Paul. And the best is, I don't know how she got in. I mean, I guess anybody can get in. Laura Ingraham from Fox News is behind Fauci during this. And some of the eye rolls and looks, it's like she's a meme right there. It's pretty well done. I'm going to start where I start, which is, well, I guess we could start with saying that Rand Paul is guilty of slander, intimidation, obsession, unhinged. What about this is obsession and intimidation and slander? It's your diary. It's your words. It's your conversations. It's your notes. What exactly about all of this could possibly be slander? Obsession, you lied. You lied. And as somebody who is out there trying to figure out what happened and what we did to the country, shouldn't we note the people who lied and hold them to account? It's the only rational course. Only rational course. But I have to dig into this idea of unredacted. Sharing my unredacted diary. Now, I have had a couple people ask me in the chat room. I've had people on social media. Who keeps a diary? And are you, Tony, the only person who doesn't keep a diary? I don't see anything wrong with diaries, with having a journal, with writing things down. Not at all. Notes of what happened during the day, thoughts that you had. It's actually a really helpful thing to go back and look at your own notes. I talk about this in the world of cigars, about keeping a diary of what you've been trying and flavors that you got, so you can go back and look at things. The idea of keeping notes of where you were. Whenever I write somebody a note, if I send somebody a card, I date it so people know when it came from. I think that it's actually an extremely good skill and one that I would commend people to getting into. Do I keep a diary? I do not. I have this show. If I want to know what I was thinking at any one moment, I can just go back through the shows, right? The show is my diary. The show is also my therapy. I would tell you right now, get yourself a show. It is helpful. Sometimes it'll drive you nuts, but for the most part, very, very helpful for keeping blood pressure low. If the diary had been redacted, Dr. Fauci, would that have been better? You mean if we didn't have the information, if we didn't have the data, if we didn't have you on record, if we didn't have proof of all of the things that you had said privately, contrary to what you had said publicly, then it would have been fine. That is a very, very, very weird argument. That is a strange, peculiar bit of nonsense. It is because we have all this information that we can say, my gosh, look what you have done. Look what you have done. And what you have done is unacceptable. And there were a lot of senators, Democrats and Republicans showed up. One of the people who showed up, John Fetterman, actually put on the suit and tie to say this.
Well, one that it's not about much more your regrets, but I have one. And that is early on that there was the theory that the virus could have emerged from the lab. And early on that became like a right-wing kinds of theory. And I thought it seemed to make sense. Now, there was a really advanced lab that was close by, and then you have this unknown virus out. So, but that became a very partisan thing. And now it seems now it's more and more emerging theory that would have come from the lab. Now, I think that the next time our nation's facing something like this, we are not become, as I might have been, blinded by the partisan idea that maybe the truth might come from a side that's different than you are. But I think we should really be willing to pursue truth, no matter where that may have emerged, after.
That is correct. We should not be afraid to ask ourselves what is actually happening here. And it may come from a different place than our ideological brethren. It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it wrong. And yet that's where we're going. I mean, the hearing had all sorts of nonsense associated with it, including the lawyer for Anthony Fauci. Now, there were a bunch of lawyers there. He had a bunch of lawyers, and Senator Rand Paul makes note of this repeatedly. And one of them decided to sit at the table with Fetterman. He wasn't asked to sit at the table with Fetterman. He wasn't a witness. He wasn't called as a witness. He had no ability to speak. But he wanted to sit next to his client, and he wanted to now get into a back and forth with Senator Rand Paul, to which Senator Rand Paul is not having any of it, and yet Democrats want to hear from the lawyer.
You are not recognized. Security, we'll hold off, but you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table, and we told you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said, sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
He doesn't sit so quietly. I mean, he tries to for a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
That's Gary Peters, Democrat from Michigan, the guy not running for re-election. He's not a witness. So this is a great example of the politics. You're the senator. This is your hearing. Do you not believe in the rules? And the answer is, well, when it's politically disadvantageous, I don't believe in the rules. What kind of thing is this? So Gary Peters, the ranking member, says, I want to hear from him. And Rand Paul's like, what's wrong with you?
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers. He can advise. His lawyers can give him advice. He's got a half dozen here. They're all allowed to talk to him.
Yes.
All right. But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered. For a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Grabs his briefcase, shoulders in the briefcase, and then he leaves. You should look at this and say these people are unserious. The worst part about COVID, well, people did die. We took something that we should have been working on together. And we said, how do we make it political? I can't say it enough. And here we are, knowing what we know about Fauci and how he lied, and they're still making it political. I want to say again that the court of public opinion is going to be very, very clear here. Now, as for the idea of a prosecution, Senator Rand Paul later spoke to the press about this.
Would you hold Dr. Fauci in contempt? Do you think that you would have the votes in the Senate to do that?
That's the vote that will happen in committee next week. It will be in contempt of Congress. We believe that with his liability, his immunity from criminal liability, that he didn't need to hide behind the Fifth Amendment, and that maybe the Fifth Amendment doesn't attach when you have a pardon in place. That'll be a legal question, but the question on contempt will be voted on, and then there's a question of whether or not the Department of Justice will take that up. You know, I've recommended before for his criminal prosecution, and neither the Biden DOJ nor the Trump DOJ have taken it up. All I can do is recommend prosecution. I can't initiate a prosecution.
Correct. His hands are tied at that moment. And Fauci may be very well just relying on that. As a citizen, he can. Does the pardon preclude him from taking the fifth? I don't have an answer for you. I'm not going to claim to be a legal expert, right? Okay, I did once see 5 episodes of Matlock, so I should be pretty good, but I don't have the answer. And the question is, will the DOJ make a move? And you also have to consider the political on that. Do you make a move? Let me further the political. Do you make the move before the midterms? These are real considerations. But the court of public opinion, this dude's guilty and we all damn well know it. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz today. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to hit like. Don't forget to subscribe. I don't know. There are other emojis going on there. Comments are open. Feel free to join in. If the comment is ridiculous, I most probably just delete those people right out. It's just, asking a question is fine. Being weird, just don't be weird. Could we? That'd be great and wonderful and terrific. And Patrick, I see you in there. Where's my Corvette? Patrick has the esteemed honor of having purchased my broken, not running Hummer H3 and made it work in less than 24 hours. 2 mechanics told me it doesn't work. My 09 H3, which was great, and he made it work in less than 24 hours. And then he offered to be like, hey, I can give it back to you. No problem. I feel bad. I got it working. I'm like, no. You bought it. You did this. Enjoy every bit of it. And then he told me that he found a Corvette. I'm like, okay, now I got to see it. Now, and so far, nothing, Patrick. Don't. Yeah, that's right. Patrick is getting called out nearly every day. I want to see the thing. Like he's responsible for getting me a Corvette. He didn't do anything wrong. Come on now. Let's get back to the show. There is a story about eBay that might qualify as the weirdest story I have ever come across. Tony Katz today, and that's saying something. It is a $56 million settlement. Tony Katz, I said hello. Sorry. This is how weird the story is. It's got me all confused. eBay and 3 former top execs are paying $55.7 million. It's a lawsuit by a Massachusetts couple who say they were victims of a stalking and harassment campaign carried out by employees in retaliation for their coverage of the company. So David and Ina Steiner, I know nothing about them at all. They run, I guess, a site that reviews different websites. It's called E-commerce Bytes, BYTES, and it was critical of eBay. And I guess eBay didn't like it. And so the chief communications officer texted to someone in 2019 that it was time to, quote, take her down, meeting this woman and this couple. So they engaged in harassment of this couple. They were trying to figure out how they could go after this couple. They targeted them in a cyber stalking campaign that involved, this is the quote, this is from Yahoo Finance, sending the couple cockroaches, fly larvae, and a bloody Halloween pig mask. That is so unhinged that these people at eBay could be one of my trolls. Who does this? Why in the world would anyone? I'm Tony Katz. Weirdest, craziest. People have free time. I can't play it on air. I mean, I can play it now. Somebody left me a message. I mean, I get plenty of hate stuff, right? I never get a one of these "I'm going to kill you" messages. I've never received that. I receive stuff that's much more ambiguous. And then I'll receive the stuff, are you a Jew? Yes. And your mother can prove it because she's seen my circumcision many times. I'm telling you, Landon, if you can't figure out how to get looped into the show, no one can hear you. Maybe you should figure this out. By the way, Nick needs to come by and do an upgrade to some of the equipment here. So ask him and see if we can put this together. But today I got a voice message. Should I play it? No. It's a lot of cursing. move out of Indiana. We blanking this and blanking that. I'm a pedophile protector. And I shared it with the management of my home station. They're like, are they calling you a pedophile? So I have to explain to them, no. They think Trump's a pedophile because they've lost, all sense of rational thought. And that's what this is. It crazy. But as somebody leaving me a message like that, I am seeing the escalation. So I just want to say for the record, no, I did not kill myself. Just putting that out there. I have also never crossed Hillary Clinton. Oh, we've got 3 more things coming up. I'm going to bring that to you. Let me get that together right here. And there's that. And Patrick giving me the update on the Corvette. It's being restored. What do you mean it's being restored? How much am I spending on this Corvette? We may have a different view of what I'm looking for. No, I have never been to the Corvette Museum in Bowling Green. I've driven by it many times. I have never been. I should go. I really should check that out. Hold on a second. Let me do this right here. There's that. 1 minute to go. And then there's this. New Yorkers upset that Mamdani is doing commie things. This is what you voted for. What are you getting in any way upset about? You knew what you were getting. You voted for it. Am I supposed to feel bad for you? I do not. Not in any way. All right. There we go. And now we are good. We can get back to it. Coming back. Beautiful. 3 more things. Tony Katz. That's me, by the way. Tony Katz today. It's the name of the show. YouTube and Rumble, Tony Katz. Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. On the Twitter, also known as X, Tony Katz. 3 more things. These are things that should be front page news, but because of what's on the front page, they don't make the front page. I bring these things to you as well. Now, we know that Jordan intercepted 5 Iranian missiles. This took place yesterday. It was CENTCOM making this announcement that there was a missile attack from the Iranian regime. I think the most interesting thing about this is that they let everybody know they can still send missiles. And it was the U.S. and Saudi Arabia together that engaged in responses. Part of this is Iran still trying to get the neighboring nations who they've already attacked multiple times, the UAE, Bahrain, Jordan, to come to their side. It's not happening. The Middle East is changing. And Trump has been a leader in this. The Abraham Accords have done this. The Rethink has done this. And Netanyahu was there at the White House yesterday. And a couple of articles were about the diminished stature of Netanyahu. I took that as an interesting kind of statement. Trump saying, I'm going to sell F-35s to whomever I want to sell F-35s to. Yes, he is. Do I think he should sell them to Turkey? No, I don't. But yeah, he's going to make that call. He's not worried about what Netanyahu says about it. All of this going to the idea that if you think Netanyahu is in charge of Trump, it's just unseriousness. It's just Trump hate. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. You can argue that you don't want to be involved in a fight with Iran. I think that that's a bad idea. We know it's a terrorist nation, that the terrorism continues. They've been at war with us for 47 years, just like Islamists have been at war with the world since the beginning of the Islamist. But them shooting missiles shows that they still can. And to point out something Major Mike Lyons said earlier on the program, our military analyst, the economic blockade may be working and there may be fractures and they may not be able to pay all of their terrorists. But the bombing should continue to exacerbate what's happening on the economic side, to continue the pressure. And I wonder if that's going to happen. President Trump said he was going to hit them hard. The Dow was down over 800 points at one moment today. The NASDAQ was down over 200 points one moment today. And you could say that that has to do with oil. Oil is at $84.50. That's about midday. A barrel on the West Texas crude that comes out of the ground. The Brent crude coming out of the oceans was $89.97. It's up over $5 just today. Right? Anytime there's an action, these things are going to go up. But Iran told us that they're still capable of doing things. So we have to, I think, engage appropriately with that. So that's leading the way. And of course, Anthony Fauci not testifying in front of Congress, showing up to plead the fifth 111 times. We did the count. It was 111 times that we saw this happen, that he pled the fifth. He would not answer questions. But there are some other stories. And one of these goes to New York. And if you say to me, Tony, we don't care about New York, I agree. But if we're going to argue that Mamdani is now leading the new Democrat Party, which is the Communist Party, we have to see what it is that he has brought and what it is that it has wrought. Yeah, I shouldn't have said it that way. That's not good for radio. Longtime New Yorkers, according to the New York Post, fume after being hit with a massive pied-à-terre tax. This was Mamdani bragging about the fact that if you have a second home in New York, a condo, apartment, whatever it is, worth over $5 million, you're going to pay more taxes because you have to pay your fair share. The rich aren't paying their fair share. We've heard this before, and it's nonsensical. Well, a list got released of all of the homes that are going to get hit. Names, addresses, and people are saying, did you just put out a hit list? Now, I noted immediately that if somebody wanted to, they could find publicly available information. Home purchases, the stuff gets listed, it gets recorded. The argument counter to that if people are being hit with this tax, you could look up and see what's going on, is that what the Mamdani team did is they made it a very easy, very searchable bit of information because they want to go after these people, whether it's they want attack, whether they want humiliation, whether they want a pressure campaign, whatever it is. And that's why they did it. And when you take a look at the numbers of where this tax is going, you start realizing that this isn't about $5 million worth of value, which in New York is a very easy thing for an apartment to be. You have got numbers that go down to $1 million. It's not just apartments, it's homes. And people have been getting these letters, this potential tax bill, who don't own a second home. This is their primary residence. So they are extremely, extremely bothered. This is what you voted for. My problem is that not everybody in New York voted for this. And the reason I bring it up is because terrible ideas very often spread. You've got a communist that runs Seattle. You've got the whole of California. So you have the possibility of this spreading. Very often, what happens in the Midwest, now I know we're heard all over the place. We're heard in Charlotte and WBT. We're heard in Detroit on 910 AM Superstation. We're heard in Peoria, Illinois. We're heard down in Tulsa on KRMG. Other spots in Indiana. What's up, MNC Nation? What happens in New York has a way of spreading. And very often you'll hear me say, the people who don't want to live under this insanity will move. I have said this about Ken Griffin, that's the video that Mamdani made of the hedge fund manager. This is Ken Griffin's other apartment or one of his properties, and we're going to tax the living snot out of it. And Ken Griffin said, well, we're not going to have our offices in New York. Correct answer. You should just move all your business out of New York. You don't need to be there anymore. It's the capital of nothing. It's not the capital of finance anymore. Let's change the capital of finance. Newsmax and Fox News, why are you staying there? I don't disagree. It would be a huge investment to have to move everything out of those buildings. I get it. They're going to tax you out of existence. They're going to come after you. Why stay? I really do think that they should move. And what I get is, Tony, we don't want these people moving here. Everybody across the Midwest and all these places, we don't want them coming here. I understand that all too well. But there are plenty of people who live in these places. They haven't done anything wrong. They didn't vote for this. They're living in the madness, and they don't want to live in the madness. As I see it, there are good businesses out there. Why shouldn't we want them? Good businesses run by good people. Why shouldn't we want them? Why shouldn't we say, come? I believe New York should suffer the fate of Atlas Shrugged. And eventually the lights will go out. And we should watch them fail. And I think we should point and tell everybody we know, you see that? That's what happens when you're a fool. That's what happens when you push against capitalism. That's what happens when you hate people. That's what happens when you say things as ignorant and daft and wholeheartedly stupid as fair share. These things are coming for the Midwest and the South and everywhere else. We need to be aware of them. That's why I bring it up. Then there was a story from the Wall Street Journal. Fascinating. From Cracker Barrel to Boeing, companies are turning to retired CEOs. The new crop of CEOs are failing, so they're going back to the people who were there before. And I wondered aloud what this is telling us. Is this about acumen? Is this about business? Is this about knowing how to run a company? Or is this about attitude? That the company has to profit. When the company profits, it can survive. So stop worrying about the other nonsense and get back to profit, people. Now, you could argue it might be one and the same. I'm not 100% sure it's one and the same. Maybe the answer is the attitude allows for the acumen to flourish. Profit is good. Well, you're profiting on the backs of the working class. The working class is making money because the company is profiting. If I hire somebody, I'll pick a number, at $10 an hour, well, let's call it $20 an hour to make, some people not crazy. If I hire somebody at $20 an hour, they have to provide me $21 an hour worth of service. Otherwise, it's of no value. Why would I hire them? Why would I ever do such a thing? So you have to start with the attitude that profit is good. Profit matters. And if you don't have that attitude, you don't have a company worth a dang. So is that what we're seeing here? That this turning to retired CEOs, yes, it could be because they have a proven track record. And it could be because they have the attitude that is necessary for growth. Not playing in the woke spaces, not playing in the madness, not worrying about having a board that has 2 of this color and 2 of this gender and 2 of this. No. A board that knows what it's doing. A company that is focused. And maybe what needs to happen is you bring in these older CEOs, and the thing that matters most is training the other executives to be able to take over a company that has the same attitude. Maybe the most telling story I have seen in a while. Because you know what? Attitude is acumen. Look at that. You turned me all around right there. You need the attitude to be able to apply the acumen to be able to have the company on better financial footing, which is better for everybody who works for the company because it means they have a job. Having 2 of this and 2 of that and all of the woke stuff, it doesn't provide a result. It doesn't provide a value. We've proven it. We've proven it. And if you want real value, protect your data. Because there are people out there trying to steal it every single way they can. And they get these files with your address and your cell numbers, your email addresses. They've got your kids' name. They've got your kids' names. And this file that has your medical history and everything else, it can be bought by anybody with a credit card. This is the data broker industry, multi-billion-dollar industry. Your file gets collected, it gets packaged, it gets sold, all of it legal. They know everything about you. And they send that phishing text. You're like, how in the world does somebody know this? Someone paid for your file, guys. Last year, Americans lost $20 billion to fraud. That's with a B. These scammers, they're not lucky. They got prepared. Do something about it. Protect your file. I did. I use Incogni, INCOGNI. They go broker by broker, forcing each one of them to delete your file. You know those opt-out forms that they all bury? Well, Incogni finds those. And if your data tries to creep back, right, they try and get it back out there, Incogni wipes it again. Go to incogni.com/cats, Katz. My last name, that's the website, incogni.com/cats right now for 60% off. Promo code CATS. Incogni, that's who you want to use. Get 60% off. Incogni.com/cats. Take your private life off of the market. Incogni.com/cats. Keep it here. It's Tony Katz today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. All right. You say come back right now. Well, I came back. And then you said I'm playing with fire. Wait, are you talking about me? Or are you talking about somebody else? Who's playing with fire? That is not I, or am I? I don't know. Maybe. Ma'am, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you meant. So I don't know what to say there to that. Just a note. I'm out for the next couple of days. Pre-planned stuff that I've got. All good. All is well. Kira Davis will be sitting in the big chair for me. So that's pretty solid. I don't think she is live streaming. It'll just be radio. So I apologize for that. I'm not apologizing for taking the time. I have some very groovy stuff planned. Not going anywhere, but I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. Quite a bit. I almost took today off. I am glad I didn't, because the Fauci stuff was just too good. Just too good. All right, coming back in about 30 seconds. Okay, so Warsh is holding, he is the Fed chair, Kevin Warsh. He'll be holding that conference. It's scheduled for 2:30, but I don't think we're gonna get any information until after we're off the air. So we'll have more on that tomorrow from Kira as well, whether or not we're going to see changes in rates. Let's get back to the show. We will beat the blanking blank out of Iran. Well, that's what President Trump said. Don't look at me. Tony Katz today. It was Iran that tried to hit U.S. bases and U.S. personnel in Jordan and other places. President Trump said we'll be hitting them hard. They're going to get a beating. He said this on Fox News. A brief interview he had with Trey Yingst. And further continued the conversation that negotiations will continue. Quote, we're going to let them keep talking. Sure. Okay. If they don't make a deal, then I go back and I finish the job. But that's going to take them forever to rebuild. I could take out most of their bridges in less than an hour. Less than an hour. It really decimates the country. So those are big things. And then there's always the desalination plants. And who am I hurting there? I'm hurting the people. So I'm not looking to do that. I just want, very simply, they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And what they have told you, Mr. President, is that they want a nuclear weapon. And they're not going to stop pushing for a nuclear weapon. And there is no behavior change at all that is going to get them to stop. They want to have dominion over the area, and they want to be able to threaten all of humanity for forever. And if they don't build it today, they're going to try and build it tomorrow. They're clear. This isn't the Israelis. This isn't the Americans. This isn't some weirdo kind of thing, conspiracy theory online. This is what the regime is telling you. So you have one option, and one option only. One thing only, Mr. Vasily. You have one option only. And that is the end of the regime. And if it means taking out the bridges, taking out the power plants, yeah, that's what it means. And yes, it's going to be rough on the people. And we can help them because they're going to have a lot of oil money with which to rebuild. More to get to. This is Tony Katz today. Stop talking and start chalking. You mean chalk outlines. That's a line. Did you come up with that? I had not heard that before. That is a statement right there. For sure. Look at that. It means commit war crimes. See, this is the kind of talk that doesn't actually move anybody. It'll get the left to clap like circus seals, but it doesn't mean anything. They're a terrorist organization that has been attacking United States citizens for 47 years. It should be ended. Why in the world would you call it a war crime? It's just not true. It's not real. It's all, what is the word I'm looking, crap? I believe that might be the word. It's unserious. It is unserious. So we're clear. Dismiss it out of hand. Can't thank you guys enough for being here. The show continues at WIBC.com. You're going to want to check that out. Keep the radio show going. I am gone for the next couple of days, but I will be back on Monday. Don't forget the shorts will be up and everything over there on YouTube, and I will get the shorts onto Rumble. I haven't done that yet, so I apologize. And Instagram is up there everywhere. The shorts are everywhere. So be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. Can't thank you guys enough for being here, being part of the show so very much. And we did today, we did schedule the live stream, and I do think it had some results. So I'm going to keep working on that and scheduling things and seeing if we see a difference there and how everybody's able to find the show. I know there were some issues with finding the show in days past, so we're trying to do all the things we can to make it easier on everybody to do just that. Guys, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Follow, like, subscribe, do all the things. Be well. I'll catch you back on Monday, but there'll be more content every day, Thursday and Friday, the rest of this week. There'll be more content up, so be sure to check that out. I'll catch you then, guys. Take care.